What a day.
We're back. It's been a weekend, but we are back. We're ready for another one.
We are ready for another podcast.
Yep. Minot Talk. Tuesdays, 1 p.m. We're here.
Every Tuesday, although that might change. Well, still be here on Tuesdays, but the time might change.
Be ready for an announcement coming up on some of those things.
There's a certain time of day that works best for you. Let us know. We're thinking 9 a.m., but you let us know. As we kick off this podcast, do want to take a moment and remember somebody that passed away.
Very good friend of the show.
Very good friend of the show, of the Dakotan, but also of many people in Minot, made a huge impact in a lot of people's lives. It's been very good to see the outpouring of support of just people talking about the impact that he made in their lives. I think there's a lot of things that he did from an activist level where he was engaged in tracking the things that happened in the city and in the state and throughout. But also one of the things that cannot be forgotten about Leif Snyder is his support that he gave to people. He's somebody that was an encourager, that encouraged people to get involved, encouraged people to do things. And I think that's one of the things that I will remember. I know there was times where we went out to lunch, talking about things, making sure that we were on the right path, talking about transparencies, things like that, things that were important to him, and overall really supported the mission that we have here at the Dakota, just creating open conversation. Yeah. So we're grateful to have known him, grateful to have been able to work together, and we're going to miss the first Tuesday after City Council of the month, having Leif on to talk City Council.
Yeah, without a doubt. Leif was a great guy. I've had the pleasure, if you've watched the shows in depth, you know that Leif and I were second cousins. Didn't know him great growing up. He was a friend. Obviously, we're related, see him at family events, but I really, really got the pleasure to get to know him over this last year time frame, working here at the Dakota and watching him run for election last summer and getting the chance to really work with him over this past fall. I've looked up to Leif as a mentor. He has been someone that I have considered a friend over the time, and I look forward to what we're able to do on the first Tuesday following City Council this April. We're going to put a little tribute together for Leif, so be on the lookout for that. It's going to be something good.
Yeah, it'll be a good time. Well, as good of a time as it can be, but definitely it'll be good looking at some of the positive memories of life. So
undoubtedly,
very good. No easy way to move out of that, but life must go on. It's good to have you part of the show today, Kim.
No, thank you. And well done about Leif, by the way. I met him a few times at City Council, had conversations with him. Impressive guy. Always impressed with him.
Yeah,
undoubtedly.
Very good.
We have Kim with us, Kim Fundingsland, legend of the Minot area. We're going to talk about some of the big happenings that have been going on recently. We might touch on some city council stuff, but I want to really start off with some of the Anita Knutson conversation, because you've at least indirectly followed that from the start.
Yes, I have. Very interesting case, as everyone knows, I guess.
Yeah, some developments kind of coming up today. They're in the second part of jury selection this morning. Sounded like they went in with about 50 people, and they're going to narrow it down to 12 plus an additional 4 alternatives. This morning, the defense did file a motion to dismiss the charges.
Surprise.
Yeah, they're doing everything they can at the last minute to try to get it off.
As they should be.
Yeah, it's their job. Yeah, 100%. They're saying that the state committed a Brady violation, which is failing to disclose evidence that could implicate an alternate suspect in the killing of Anita. And they also had an impeachment disclosal that they said the state didn't do the right job with. So they're looking at that. Odds are the judge, as he has with the last one, will probably throw it out, but can't guarantee that until it happens. We'll probably hear this afternoon at some stage with that.
And it's noteworthy that it's in Grand Forks. I mean, Minot's been waiting for this trial, and then it's not here.
It gets moved, yeah.
And that's an interesting discussion. There's people that I know that were part of the original, received the questionnaires to be part of the jury pool. I didn't, and the crime was committed a long time ago. There's a lot of people that moved in, but they felt like it was too tainted still. Seems like perhaps you could still find a untainted jury pool. It really stinks because it stinks to have it in Grand Forks. I just got to say that. It is really a bummer.
If you'll remember, it was the defense that put a questionnaire out on Facebook whether or not this could be a
Yeah, I'm sure they did.
whether or not that this would be a fair venue to try Nicole Rice, and that's what really led to the trial being moved.
And Facebook spoke, because Facebook has some pull these days.
They
They can get trials moved around the country.
The judge also spoke in regard to that, by the way, and put an
he
end to
did.
it.
Without a
And
doubt.
we talked about it last week. He is at the point where he's done. And that's what's really interesting about the dismissal. And I know it's law, so it's all fair game. But what's really interesting about the dismissal, because it feels like he's had enough. He just wants to get it tried, not get it done and over with. Don't take it the wrong way. There needs to be a fair trial. Things need to be done properly in order. But it seems like he's not about gains, about just trying to get this delayed.
No, I think you're right, Jonathan. He's reached that point. We're talking about Judge Richard Hagar, but he's also the judge that allowed several lengthy delays. And
Yeah, he's
now
had his
he
patience.
seems to have taken a different approach, like enough is enough.
Yeah, that's good.
He allowed it to get pushed back over a year at this point, and it was finally to the stage where it's time to get it going. And now we're sitting in Grand Forks. Hopefully they could, as soon as today, have the opening statements happen even. That'll be a really interesting development. I know KX and KMOT are planning on streaming it online.
Right.
We've reached out to touch on base with Court TV on the licensing side of it. It costs like $80 a minute to stream it, so I don't know if we will be the live stream place for that, but we have reached out. We've done our part at least, but
That'll add up.
Yeah, it doesn't take long at that stage. But Kim, going ahead and kind of looking at this, what are some big things to kind of expect in the early first portion of this trial?
Well, I haven't seen the witness list, but I have a pretty good idea of some of them that are on there. I know Bob Barnard was one of the investigators at the Minot PD, later went on to become the sheriff of Ward County.
Yep.
He's back. He was in Arizona. He came back for the trial, so he's on the witness list. What Bob will say, I don't know. I know that he's a big guy, and he couldn't fit in the window. You remember him telling me that.
Sure.
He couldn't climb through the window, so and some of the suspects were bigger than he was, and he said they didn't do that. But
There you go.
that's a big diversion, that window screen. But Bob was there, and he doesn't speak a lot, but I'm sure
What he has to say will be impactful.
I think so. I think he'll do well. Oh, I know he'll do well. He's a smart guy, and he knows that crime scene better than anybody.
For sure, yeah. He was one of the first, if I'm not mistaken, he was one of the first detectives on scene, if I remember reading right.
Yeah, I think Dale Plessis, who's now the acting police chief, I believe, was the first person there.
Fair.
But I'm sure Bernard was there same day,
Yeah,
within a
exactly.
few hours. So
One of the first actual detectives to be on
Correct.
scene there
Yep.
and everything,
Yep.
especially at that time. It's kind of interesting with how this is all playing out into this process we're in now. I really would like to see it actually happen. It's crazy that it's taken this long to get here. It's almost surreal that it's finally ready to take place. They have it scheduled for 3 weeks. Do you think that's a fair timeline? Do you think it could go longer than that?
I don't think so. I think 2 weeks is probably wrap it up, I believe. But, trials can be surprising.
That's fair.
They really can be. And, talking about how long it's been, I was there. I was working at the Minot Daily News at the time when this event happened back in 2007, the murder. I had a girlfriend at the time that lived in the same row of apartments.
Oh, wow.
So I was pretty familiar with the crime scene. And of course, I went up and looked at it. I wasn't the reporter, but I was very interested because I've been in news my whole life.
Exactly.
So it went on. About 4 or 5 years into it, I began as the sole reporter from the Minot Daily News doing Anita Knutson stories, and continued it here at the Dakotan. And about a year and a half ago, I stepped back from everything. So
Took a big deep breath.
yeah, you guys will give me a little refresher course. But my goal as a reporter was always to follow this through to the end, and it. Wow!
Just kept on going.
Wow! I mean,
Almost 20 years.
took 15 years to get an arrest, and now another 3 years?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
No,
Yeah.
it's absolutely crazy. As you roll back the clock, going through the archives that are in your brain. I'm sure there's a lot. That'd be we need to get story time with Kim. That's
Okay.
what we need. but going through the archives of what you remember, as you began to look into the case full throttle, what were some of the things that really stood out to you that should be key players even now as they begin to try it?
The key players, I think, are, well, the main key player is dead.
Mm-hmm.
Something that's been kind of sad to watch is the aging of Sharon and Gordon Knutson.
Yeah, sure.
The parents that adopted Anita when she was a baby. And that whole family, by the way, they've wanted to see justice, and now Gordon's at the stage where he doesn't hear very well, and I'm sure it's going to be tough for him to sit through that trial. But
for sure.
The way it captivated the city, when you go through all those things, and that the PD got it messed up, this guy got it messed up, that didn't happen, well, it had to be this person. And that just went on for year after year after year.
Yeah.
And now none of that matters right now. It's going to go to the jury.
I remember looking back as a kid, just hearing about the sheer number of suspects there were right away. I remember so many people were fixated on the person that they saw running away from the scene, and it just ended up being a guy that was out on a morning jog. I remember they had a group of Hispanic men was something that they were really looking into at one time. Obviously, some former classmates were really one person was heavily implicated in one documentary that was done probably 10, 12 years ago at this point. It's been incredible to see the sheer volume of suspects that they've had to weave through to get to this point finally get an arrest on someone. And I think the big thing that they've taken away from this is that it was needed the person that did it likely needed to have a key to lock the apartment door behind them after they left. And that whittled it down to the current suspect, Nicole Rice, Anita, who unfortunately was killed at that point, and then the janitor at the time who killed himself, unfortunately, about a year or two afterwards.
Correct. Yep.
Do you think in hindsight there's any possibility that janitor could have had anything to do with it, or?
No, at the time, well, he must have done it. And then they found out, well, he had girlfriend problems, job problems, multiple problems, and he committed suicide for reasons completely unrelated to Anita Knutson.
For sure.
Plus, he's one, when I mentioned Bob Barnard said he couldn't climb through the window,
He was
which was, everybody thought it was the window thing because the window screen was off. But
Right.
but Linnell is bigger than Bob Bernard. So he said, "There's no way that guy's getting through that window."
If Bob couldn't, it's impossible for him at that stage, yeah.
So in the window screen, since we mentioned it, that was on Anita's apartment right next to her bed.
Yep.
Was out lying on the ground when her father went there to check on her because she hadn't answered phone calls for a couple of days. It was highly unusual for that child. And he actually reached in through the window screen and touched Anita's dead body.
Oh, gosh.
So that's when he went and got Linnell, who opened the door for him with a key. And it was the TV show Cold Justice, investigative show. I mean, they got some high-level people there doing that. And that show concluded that it had to be done with a key. But, as we've said,
Who knows?
does that key say do not reproduce or do not duplicate, or are
How
there
can you
200 of those keys out there?
How can you guarantee there was, especially now almost 20 years ago, you can guarantee there were only 3 keys at that time?
Good luck.
Be difficult to do.
Yeah, I think the big thing will be to see if there is some kind of DNA evidence that really comes forward on the whole thing. If they can actually bring something to light in the trial that they maybe haven't come forward with yet.
But take a step back. What if that key was enough to convict? So that means that we don't know who, okay? So say it's Nicole Rice or someone else. We know that everybody is innocent until proven guilty. Could you imagine you're one thing away from getting away from it? And this is just the bad part of humanity, right? But you're one thing away from getting away from it, and it was you locked the door. If you would have just left the door unlocked, you would have been fine. That'd be a bummer. That'd be a bummer for that to be the one thing to get you out of everything that happened.
Yeah,
you covered your DNA, you covered this, that. The other thing is like, well, I locked the door.
Locking the door behind you.
Yeah,
the force of habit.
I mean, if it's your apartment,
right? It's
that's what your routine. You probably do it, right?
That's what's scary about it.
Or if you want to I mean, the screen lying outside, people said, well, that's a diversion, made it look like a crime scene, but there was no crime. There was nothing missing.
Right.
There was no sexual assault.
Right.
And the only DNA that I'm aware of that's definitive is Anita Knutson's DNA on the blood, blood DNA on the screen, which indicates the screen was cut out after she was stabbed.
Sure.
And there's 2 stab wounds, one that cut the heart. And
it's terrible.
That was the end.
Terrible.
Yeah, really.
You were going somewhere. I interrupted you.
Oh gosh, I'm off track now.
Yeah, you're on a roll, man.
I try sometimes. I try to be at least remotely prepared at times. Unlike I was at the city council meeting last night, but that's fine.
Oh, you want to go there?
No, we don't have to. Not yet. At least we can. Let's stick on this first. Before we do finish up on the Anita Knutson thing, when we continue into the trial, obviously we'll have to go through opening, closing statements. Both sides will get to dissect the witness lists. You're thinking about 2 weeks for a time frame would be hopefully a more attainable goal than the 3 weeks they have lined out. Is there any shocks or any surprises that we could maybe have for an outlook? Anything that we should be on the lookout for to come forward in this?
Boy, I think one thing, and it could go into the 3rd week. They could go into a Monday, Tuesday of the 3rd week. That wouldn't really surprise me the way this case has gone. But one thing I'm really curious about is the murder weapon. The knife was found on Anita's bed right next to her.
Yep.
Pretty definitive knife. It's got an Indian headdress, a medallion on the side, and a little Western-looking knife. And I've never heard anybody say, I've seen that knife.
Interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Somebody had to see that knife.
It sounds fairly
come out
unique.
somewhere, sometime, you know.
Or even if you sold it.
Well,
you know what I mean?
You know, and it could be one of those pieces of circumstantial evidence. That's what's going to decide the case. I think it's all going to be circumstantial, right?
At this point, yeah.
And if you think about the definition of circumstantial evidence, it's the one they use in the courtroom quite often is if you go to bed one night and there's no snow on the ground and you get up in the morning and there's snow on the ground, that's not proof that it snowed. That's circumstantial.
Right, yeah.
Of course.
And so I'm sure the defense
is
just going to go through all that type of thing. And you know, they can only muddy the water, I think, and say, look, it's terrible that a woman lost her life, but it'll be worse if you duplicate it now. You know, I mean, that's...
So...
I think that's where they'll go.
Right, with the circumstantial stuff. But one thing, people are humans, right? We can all agree on that. So you have jurors are also humans, and they're people. So we have that closed, right? I'm trying to make sure that we have a process. If there's snow on the ground, and that doesn't mean it snowed, I have to make sure that we have every loop closed. But one thing that the defense has done throughout, you have it where the one attorney stepped out, said, I'm not going to go and defend her anymore. You have a process that has gone through delay, and even again that's coming out this week. Does the jury begin to get a little tinge in the back of their mind like the defense is trying to hide something? They don't want this case to be tried. They're trying to hide something. Does that begin to develop where there's already a little bit of influence that's going on in jurors' minds? So then when they step into the courtroom, maybe they weren't here in Minot because they had to move the whole thing to Grand Forks, but now there's already a little doubt in their mind?
Could be. I would think some of the jurors would have that, and you know, as much as they're supposed to try and stay neutral.
Right.
But there's going to be some things come up, like it was shortly after the murder that Nicole Rice, then Nicole Thomas, left the state. She went to Texas.
Yeah.
And her family had to go get her. Why'd she go to Texas?
Right.
You know, she's back, and it was stunning when she appeared in the courtroom and then was out on bond a few hours later.
You know,
almost.
Yeah, it was just an overnighter, and that's been about 3 years, close to 3 years. She's been out.
Shy,
it's crazy. Also have the stuff that people said she said on a drunken night or whatever it might have been, that saying that she confessed to the murder and stuff like that. Again, circumstantial.
Yeah, well,
that's what's so interesting about it. So in the back of your mind, not who's guilty, not any of that. Mm-hmm. Do you think the prosecution is going to be able to win? do you think there's a path for them to win?
Sure,
like,
there is.
Like not a 10% path. I mean, like where it's
A legitimate
there's
chance.
a chance that they have to win this.
Yeah, there's a chance.
Yeah.
I think it's
There's enough there.
I think it's about 50-50, to be honest with you, but
Really?
there's a chance. Well, you know, another thing that's interesting is the affidavit that was filed for the court wasn't written within a day or two of filing that. That was written years before.
Mm-hmm.
So this has just been sitting there. And I'm told that it was turned away from the state's attorney's office more than once.
Wow.
That
They didn't even want to almost take it, kind of thing.
that's what I'm told, and if that's true, that's we'll see. And I think one of the assistant state's attorneys is handling this case, correct? Tiffany Sorgan?
That's the way it sounded. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Very interesting.
No, without a doubt, it's going to be something we're going to definitely be keeping up with over here. And you can also check out our Twitter account or X account. I will and Jonathan will be trying to do some live tweeting of the event as it's going on, and we're able to watch it throughout the week, next couple weeks. Can't guarantee we'll be 100% up on it, but when we can, we will certainly be doing that.
Very good. We're going to go to a quick break, and then after the break, we have a nice little surprise for y'all.
Oh, no.
In the demanding world of oil and gas, precision, safety, and efficiency are non-negotiable. Unmanned operator drone services revolutionizes how you monitor, inspect, and manage your operations. With cutting-edge technology and expert operators, we deliver real-time data, detailed reports, and actionable insights for our valuable clients. Why risk the safety of your team or waste precious time? Our drones access even the most challenging areas with ease, reducing downtime and enhancing safety across your sites. We take the guesswork out of your projects by offering LiDAR, mapping, and inspection services so that your projects stay safe, on budget, and on time. Unmanned operator drone services, where technology meets safety, precision, and efficiency. Contact us today to elevate.
So yesterday was city council,
It was.
and I
no.
asked Kim, how many times have you spoken before city council?
I've never spoken before city council.
You want to know how many times I've spoken before city council?
I bet never.
You know what? You are so right. I have never done it. But you want to know who did?
I'm going to get...
We're about to find out.
I'll accept my admonishment.
You're it, Kyler.
It's my fault. Yeah,
All right. So the audience you might be able to hear, that is the voice of Kyler Collom. I have never done it. But you want to know who did? We won't play the whole thing, but it's just good. No, actually, it's short. Kyler got lucky. The audio is not working.
Oh, gosh.
Because
I'm in luck.
that's how it works around
Oh, I'm
here
in
with
luck.
these YouTube
They can't
videos.
hear
They
us
do
on
not work.
YouTube.
But this is the deal. You go to, which is weird. It makes no sense why it doesn't work. But you go to Minot City Council, and you go to 45 minutes in, and there you get to see Kyler Collom at City Council speaking on behalf of Spectrum Fitness.
Yeah, so my real employment job was on the schedule of the agenda last night, and my bosses.
I consider this a real job, but
well, this will be a real job. This is my favorite job.
okay, there you go.
But
Your bosses know it.
my bosses were out of town, and they know I go to the city council meetings often. And so when I said I was there, they asked if I could say something on their behalf, and I was more than happy to. Spectrum School of Massage. It's a fantastic institution. It's all across the state, and yeah.
Good times.
I probably shouldn't have, but I still did, and it is what it is.
Yeah, good times. Just had to show him there awkwardly with his hands because it's an awkward deal. So you just got to use your hands, right?
Call me Ricky Bobby. Yeah,
Okay,
don't know what
sounds
to do with my hands.
Did you watch it back?
I know that's the first time. I don't even watch these back, let alone that.
All right. So what we're going to do real fast, just for a schedule for people watching, we're going to talk about a couple, not much at city council, but we're going to talk about some state legislature bills, state bills that are in the state legislature. Let's get it right. Otherwise, and then we're going to be talking about more of this Anita Knutson trial. So there's a bill that you did some research on.
Yes. This is something that was brought to us by listener Marie Stewart. I was looking at this very briefly a couple weeks ago when we were live on the stream. What it was HB 1318. What it looked like to me at that time was just a little bill that sort of forced pesticide companies to label their products more efficiently and properly. And the more I dug into it, however, so the bill was geared to something that kind of keeps pesticide labeling rules clear and consistent, and it aligns them with federal standards. In there, it reduces legal confusion. It would better protect farmers and agricultural businesses from possible unnecessary lawsuits, and so long whatever potential item that's worth suing over is properly labeled by the EPA standards. By ensuring the uniform labeling kind of regulations, it encourages, hopefully, in theory at least, innovation and some kind of forward progress with agriculture. However, what the bill really does is it ends up limiting consumer environmental protections. It prevents lawsuits for over minimal pesticide warnings. If so long as this is properly labeled on whatever container it's in, it allows them to be not liable for any kind of litigation at that point. So it opens up, while it kind of comes off across as something that is good for farmers, it is actually something that's really protective of insecticide companies, different things like that. And it really allows them a lot of room under the blanket of protection that this would offer. So long as these things are labeled properly, you can't go after them to sue if it gets in some kind of water supply, some kind of food supply, anything like that. So it really adds some questions. And one thing that was really interesting on it, it passed unanimously in the House. It's in committee in the Senate right now. Representative Jared Hendricks came out and said that,
I saw this.
Yeah, that he regrets his yes vote on this, and he hopes that it. And that's the thing. When I first read it here live, I didn't fully grasp it either. But the more, and it's not that long of a bill, it's only a single page. But the more you dive into it, the more you really see that it's kind of, whether it's intentionally or not, it's really kind of giving some immunity to the pesticide companies at this point. And I feel that's a little unnecessary.
Yeah, so definitely something to, if you feel like that's unnecessary as well, urge your senator to vote no, because there's still a chance for the bill to be defeated. I thought it was not courageous, that's giving him a lot of love, but good for Jared Hendricks to stand up and say, hey, I voted wrong, didn't understand. I really hope the Senate votes this down. I know lawmakers are doing that. We need more of them to do that. You don't always, you can, first off, there's 1,000 bills, right? We've talked about that. You can feel like you're prepared for a vote and then get more information after that. And good for you to say, hey, I'm wrong.
That's what I noticed on that bill. I wasn't particularly interested in that bill, but when I saw that Hendricks said, hey, I goofed everybody, that got my attention. I liked it.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah.
It really kind of stands out a little bit that way. And hopefully something can happen in the Senate, at least even if it still gets approved. Hopefully we get some contention to it and some good discussion going through committees.
Absolutely. Any other bills that have been, I have a couple, but any bills that you have?
That was my big one that I had lined up.
I think you have one, maybe you were mentioning.
Well, I think it was a 1-vote margin yesterday where the Senate passed. You remember the referendum, the initiated measure? I think it was 60-70% of the people said no, we want term limits.
Right.
Or yes, we do want term limits. And now the senators said, you got it all wrong. We're gonna, so they want to get it, another measure out there to be voted on again.
It's like 16 years or something, doubles the time.
So I thought, well, I never like the argument that the voters don't know what they're doing. I just don't. I just don't like that argument, because it doesn't matter if they know what they're doing. If that's what they want, that's what you're supposed to get, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a really interesting thing, because on the property tax issue, all we've been hearing is how the people want this. And it's not, for me, I wanted property tax reform. I didn't want this property tax relief package that they're trying to put together. I want a reform, and they're not bringing reform, but they're saying that they're bringing this relief, and that's what the people want. And so they're getting all behind this, but yet on term limits where the people said, this is what we want, they don't have the ability.
Overwhelmingly so, too.
Yeah, it wasn't close. They don't have the ability to step back and just let the people have what they want.
I loved your part about property tax, because property tax been going down every year. You get property tax relief, but the rate always goes up.
Yeah, always goes up.
And I think it's at the point now where they've got to say, hey, we better do something.
Yeah.
from the governor's office, legislative basis, before the state comes back around and says, here's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
They don't like that.
Right.
Exactly. Before 2028 rolls around, there's another version of Measure 4 on there that does pass this time.
I have confidence it'll be on there. I'm honestly, if the governor's bill is the one that passes, it still might be on there, because I don't think that's an impressive bill anymore.
Even if you combine all three of the ones that are actively going through legislation, it's passable, I think. But if only one of them gets passed and that's what's deemed the relief and the reform, I don't think that's anywhere near what we need.
The one thing that stands out to me is the people that said Measure 4 is a bad bill because you're really going to depend on the legislature to actually figure out a way to get it paid for. I'm sorry, guys, you're probably right, because they said before it was on the ballot, they said, we're going to take care of it. We will take care of it. Yeah, okay. You're going to give us a $1,400 tax credit for your primary residence that supposed to, if everybody in the future agree with it over 10 years, will take care of your full tax bill. Mm-hmm. Okay. Sounds good. Appreciate it. Thank you for trying.
Yes, we'll just shift
what gets old, I think, is all the legislators talking about all the buckets of money sitting in Bismarck. Well, that's
take from
my
one
tax money.
That's my tax money.
Wait a minute, you guys.
I paid into that.
Let's be prudent, but let's be fair too.
Yep. I drive the roads that the industry sector drives as well. I deal with that, so you can let me enjoy some of that money.
Just a hair, right?
Yeah, right.
Like, we're not asking for everything. We just want a little bit of reform here.
Right.
Not just changing the buy down from the general fund to the legacy fund.
It's crazy.
Right.
No, definitely interesting. Any other, I believe there's some hearings on some of the ESA, education savings account bills going on yesterday, today. So interesting to see if anything comes with that could have some pretty big impact. We're going to be, if it plays out, we're going to be actually having an interview with somebody about that to get some more in-depth insight on that stuff. We also have an interview that, if everything works out right, with the governor.
He finally got back to you.
That's gonna be interesting, man.
No, it was when it just.
No, spam got in the way.
Spam.
You gotta blame spam.
It was my fault. Yeah.
So, but that's gonna be an interesting interview too. We'll talk about property tax reform. Let us, if there's something specific you want to have talked about on that, let us know. We'll try to work it in there. But we're gonna talk a little bit about this legislative cycle, and also, I mean, we're right in the middle of the fire, but dude, this guy is in a dream job right now.
Yeah.
And you got to let him enjoy that.
This is the honeymoon period, right?
Yeah. He's still in it's got to be a little bit unreal waking up every day going in and say, hey, you know what? I'm governor of North Dakota. And I spent a lot of time, I believe, grew up in North Dakota. Mm-hmm. Like that's pretty neat. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, seems to have his feet on the ground and doing things the right way. So,
well, we hope.
Being a former state legislator, he definitely knows the cycle and the process himself pretty well.
Yeah.
And really, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I'm look forward to your interview that's going to take place.
Well, I'm not looking forward to the interview, but I'll look forward to it being done.
Exactly. when do we look for? Should we expect to be seeing it?
This week. Fair. Don't have a firm date, but it could be tomorrow or it could be Thursday.
Fair.
That'll be out.
We look forward to that. Anything interesting you're going to be asking them?
No, I went over my topic list, man.
All right.
We'll we got some other things. We have 30 minutes, so we'll see what all we can get in there.
See what the time limit ensues at that stage.
Yep.
Fair.
So
I look forward to it.
It'll be good, though. If you have, I'm serious, if there's certain topics that you want discussed with him, let us know. I cannot promise that it'll be included, but I will do my very best to get it in there. We're not trying to put him on the hot seat, but we want to know what's going on in North Dakota.
Undoubtedly so. There's a lot going on.
There is. All right. Well, go back to Anita Knutson, why don't we?
Yeah, we always can do that. Where do you want to start?
Boy, it's so many years, I mean, even Nicole Rice or Thomas at the time said she spent time at the Russo bar that night, so she didn't do it. Well, that bar, I don't know if you guys knew this, that bar was put together by the former football coach at Minot State University, Dave Hendrickson, who was a very good carpenter. He owned a few other properties in Russo at that time, but the bar is long since burned down. It's not even there.
Sure.
I mean, that's how old this case is, right?
Exactly at this point.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I think that's where the defense is going to push most of their argument.
Right. I think so. I think it feels like this is a game for the defense to win.
Yeah.
I feel like it's probably like 65-35 in favor of defense.
You think so? Because in theory, like you're probably going to go down, all they have to do is prove reasonable doubt inside the minds of one or two jurors.
Yeah.
That is their whole goal, and if they can do that, then they've at least won for now.
You don't have to prove that she's not, or that she's innocent. You just have to prove that she's not guilty.
Exactly.
That's all you have to do. And that's not so hard. Because when you think about it, did the snow really fall last night?
I don't disagree with your assessment. I mean, at one time I thought that the advantage would be the prosecution, but now with all these delays and the amount of time, I don't think that anymore.
Right. Yeah. I agree. Like you said, 50-50. I think it's a toss up.
It's going to be one of those, who else could have done it? That's what it's going to come down to, right?
But I think that if you were to go and put it on Poly Market, where, there's betting odds and all that, I feel like it would be in favor of the defense.
I think that's probably reasonable. It's probably going to be very close, but I think at least it'll lean that way. And you were mentioning, so part of the big thing at the start was she had at least what seemed like a good alibi for that weekend, the initial weekend where Anita was murdered. And the more it's been dived into, it seems like the story has changed at points over time. And two of the biggest people that promoted that alibi were her parents. And that's one of those slippery slopes where it's probably going to be hard to prove against it, but it's also another one of those circumstantial things where the people that are confirming your alibi happen to be your parents.
Yeah, and there were two different stories that she's had, and maybe she's had more. I don't know all the interviews that she's done at the police department, but she's had two different stories regarding where she was and what she was doing, and there's been other people that have had other stories come up and say, no, this was it. And I mean, so it's interesting that way, but it's also so long ago that memories come into play, you know?
That's the thing.
And it's just, memories are going to be wrong more often than right.
Oh, of course. It's a struggle to remember what we talked about on the show last week, let alone what you were doing on a weekend 17 years ago.
But I think, and for the prosecution side, they're going to say, look, any reasonable person can see that this person is guilty.
Yep. Right.
But the jury can say, well, we think so, but we're not going to convict someone that we don't have a smoking gun in their hand.
Right, exactly. A bloody knife.
We have exactly. Is there fingerprints on the knife that they haven't talked about or disclosed by some degree? Is there something that is going to come out that is that smoking gun in the prosecution's favor, or is the defense going to be able to finesse their way around it a little bit and find one or two jurors that have enough doubt to be able to, if not get a hung jury, get a retrial on the situation?
Yeah, and I had, early on when I was working on this case, I had an investigator tell me, I asked him specifically about DNA. Mm-hmm. And I was told, we want them to think we have DNA. Because the sample was so small.
Just minuscule.
The forensics that were available at the time of the murder have changed so much, and now that little tiny sample they can get more out of. So I'm really curious, and that came up in preliminary hearings in the Minot courtroom, whether or not this DNA could even be admitted. Yeah. And there was quite an argument about whether or not this was definitive or not, and it's in there, but it didn't sound definitive at all.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you are going to pay attention during the trial? What do you have anything? I know that you followed up more recently, right? But is there anything that really stands out to you?
So far, it's just getting this jury selection process out and starting to see the opening statements. It just, until it starts, it doesn't feel like it's going to actually happen.
Okay, so you're not convinced it's going to happen?
I'm convinced it's going to. I'm not 100% convinced it's going to happen today or tomorrow, though.
Right.
Until it does, we see those opening statements.
But I get that it's going to happen at some time. Like eventually, you're going to run out of continuances and delays. But do you think that the setup that they have right now is going to happen in Grand Forks in the next 3 weeks?
I think so. Okay. I believe so. And in that case, I'm really interested in seeing some of the witnesses they bring forward and how they're going to end up testifying and how each side is going to prosecute and try to get the defense on them. I really look forward to seeing who all gets brought, and especially if they are able to bring Devin Hall into the situation and what his testimony would even look like at that point.
So Devin Hall is currently incarcerated at a detention center on the Fort Peck Indian Reservation in Poplar, Montana. The defense requested him to be there in person, and I guess the resources were limited. Mm-hmm. That's not going to work, and so it might be via Zoom call. And I don't know if that's really what they want, but I think at this point they're also trying to find anything to stall. So, that's a good there's a good thing to stall the case right there.
Yeah, and there are several sources. Devin Hall was dismissed as a suspect.
Gotcha.
But that doesn't mean that the defense won't say, wait a minute, take another look at this. There was another guy on Money Mike. You mentioned the jogger who came down to the PD and said, hey, that's a picture of me. I remember when that drawing came out. It was so dramatic. It was published on the front page of the paper and on television. Who is it? Find this guy. And the guy, hey, that's me. I jog by there every morning. It was kind of weird, And we're nuts. We thought this was really going to be something.
I thought they had him pegged.
Yeah. It was a pretty good likeness, too.
It was. They did a great job with it.
Have you guys heard of whether or not Nicole Rice is going to testify at all?
I have not.
Because we haven't seen a full testimony list.
No.
Witness list. So that'll be interesting to see when
that might be a game time decision, too. The defense,
I'm sure it will be.
I would guess they wouldn't let her testify.
Yeah. But if she's
unless
innocent,
they
why
think
not?
they're really they haven't proven anything, maybe they will have her testify. I mean, that's what it comes down to, I think. But
if you were innocent, would you testify? I mean, I understand that there's a lot of factors in this beyond this, but if you're innocent, you'd be more likely to testify than if you were guilty.
I don't know. Because if you're innocent and you start testifying, they might think that person is guilty. I wouldn't.
Yeah. Right, yeah. It's a
I
risky
don't think it'd
move
be
either
good
way.
for her to be on the stand.
Okay.
Either, and I'm not saying she's guilty or innocent, whatever, but I just don't think that would be good because you can contradict a statement and now you got trouble.
Right, right? That's all you have to do.
Now you're walking back.
And it's really easy to do at this point.
Yeah. With all the time that's passed, it's hard to remember, like we were saying.
Already she's contradicted
her story multiple times at least.
Yeah.
And it's what could it change to at this stage?
Yep.
And maybe it's minimal and maybe it's drastic again. And if it is, how can you justify it?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Going to be interesting. We're just hoping that this thing kicks off soon enough.
Yeah.
There's supposed to be, and they may have already started, but there's supposed to be opening statements beginning anytime is what we're under the impression of. So we look forward to that.
Undoubtedly. Jury process should have, if it didn't wrap up this morning, it should be wrapping up now. They'll get their 16 people selected, and if they have time this afternoon, we should expect some opening statements, and if not, probably tomorrow.
And was it a motion to dismiss? Was that filed today?
That was this morning, yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if the judge would have ruled on that over the noon hour,
Yep,
or if
that's
he
fair.
says, hey, give me this afternoon to think about it. So here they go, delay again, possibly right away to start. Would fit the trial, right? It would fit the whole case.
It'd be perfect at this point, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And so great point. I forgot about that, honestly, that we'd mentioned that. So presiding judge Richard Hager is waiting for a response to the motion for the prosecution so he can review and then make a ruling. If the judge rules to continue the trial, the 12-member jury, along with 4 alternates, will be finaled, and then another legal motion will be heard, and barring any changes to the movement of the case, opening statements would start at 3 p.m. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now.
And I would think they're going to sequester that jury from day one.
You would
It'd
think,
probably be
right?
the move.
I would think so, the way this has gone, because it just leaves the defense, and hey, wait a minute, that's tainted now. So-and-so listened to the radio or whatever they did.
Well, and just going on social media.
They probably listened to Dakota.
Yeah.
That's probably what they did.
Exactly.
They probably listened to Kim.
Yeah.
You probably tainted them.
But that's the thing. On social media today, it's so easy for something just to pop up, even by accident. in
Oh, it
regards to
is.
this.
Somebody knows somebody on that jury, and they're probably texting back and forth, and I'm sure they're taking all those electronic means away from them, but something always slips through the cracks. It can, right?
Something that's happened.
Exactly.
And then I believe it was with a really well-publicized trial a few years ago that there was people that were following the jury car, the bus that held the jurors, and they were trying to follow that. And I mean, if you taint the jury, then that you'll delay the trial right there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Demissed trial, have to do it all over again.
I think one of the famous one, I don't know if you guys remember the O.J. Simpson trial, when the jury toured Simpson's house.
Okay.
They put all new paintings in there to look all friendly and happy.
I'm sure
this
they
is what he
did.
had.
Yeah.
No, here's O.J. This is all fun stuff. Hey, look at this great guy. And you should have saw the stuff he had up there before.
A little questionable.
So they can dress things up and make things a lot different. So
What if you're the prosecutor in there and you're like trying the glove, and you begin to go through this and you realize, like, at what moment do you think you realize this is terrible? This is not going to work. Like, in the moment, it seems like this is such a good idea. If the glove fits, it's done, right? And then you're like, wait, no, I believe he had a rubber glove on underneath that he had to have on.
Yeah. So
and
we
then
didn't get his DNA on
Let's
it.
hope there's not an 18-year-old glove that shows up in this one.
Well, it could really make news then.
yeah, it would. So definitely going to be interesting. Looking forward to it.
Undoubtedly.
And I think the Knutson family we can't forget that this was a murder. You know, I mean, it was a murder. They often call it the Nicole Rice trial, but it's the Anita Knutson murder.
Yeah.
And that's not to say Nicole's guilty, because I sure don't know, and I don't have even an opinion on it other than 50-50 that I said, but it's quite a burden on that whole family,
Right.
and to not have
that sense of
an
closure.
answer in the end is going to be really, really tough. And I'm not saying that's a reason that the jury should decide one way or another, but just put yourself in that family's shoes. And they had a suicide in the family that was related to this.
Yeah.
And so, you know, Daniel, the brother, and it's quite a case. I mean, there's so many twists and turns in this thing. It's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's a great point. Anita was adopted. She and her brother, and lived in Butte, and then went to Belva High School and then Minot State. And that's the part that is forgotten about it, especially because of the length of time that has transpired between. You just forget that there still is a family out there that
has been affected in multiple ways by this situation. And it's been really bad, and it's hopefully coming to a conclusion here for them.
And she was texting to a guy, the Money Mike, I think he's the guy from California.
Yeah,
that always
really late
comes
that
up.
night.
Yeah. To him, and then all of a sudden it stopped.
Oh,
So
interesting.
she was killed then.
Wow.
You know.
Wow. That was when texting first came out, man.
Yeah, that was the JKL, MNO,
And I would guess, and there was some of those text messages sent from Nicole to Anita are going to come up, and they're pretty nasty. Now, I don't know which ones are going the other direction. They might have been equally nasty, right?
Yeah.
But we know the ones from Nicole were pretty
harsh.
pointed, pretty harsh.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see it play out for a fact.
Correct.
Yeah. A lot will come to light.
We'll be following along, as Kyler said. We'll be posting updates on X as they are available, and as we know. On this Thursday, we're not going to be focusing on that. If there's any major updates, we will give some updates on that, but we're going to be taking a look at some stuff that's going on in the legislature. Next Tuesday, do we have a guest?
We're not confirmed, but we're hoping to get someone on that's with the new radio station that's going to be coming in town, 106.9. Hopefully we'll get it confirmed for next Tuesday, but if not, it'll probably be that first week of April at some point.
Then next Thursday, we'll be having Trigby Hammer join us to talk about, we haven't connected with him after his race.
Yeah.
And so then also talk about some of the stuff that's gone on in Bismarck through that lens as well. So continuing to bring some good content. Big changes are happening in April, though, so stay tuned. We got some exciting updates that'll be coming at you.
Without a doubt. One other thing that just to touch on here, just so you are all aware that we're aware of it as well. Rob Port has posted a couple articles in the last day or two here talking about some events in the city and some investigations that have went on. We are certainly looking into the mayor aspect of it. We'll be following the developments in this. And then he also posted one talking about a report of Officer McLeod, who unfortunately committed suicide this January. We've looked into that report. Didn't feel it was necessarily 100% in our prerogative to have to put it out when we found out about it, but fully understand why it was. So we are aware of that, and we'll be following along with that as well.
Right. So for sure, definitely interesting times in Minot right now.
It is pretty interesting.
What was the?
And I should say also, I said it's hard on the Knutson family, but it's equally hard on the Rice family or the Thomas family, because imagine if she's innocent, or if the verdict comes back innocent, and she's been under this pressure all these years. That's unbearable too. Yep. So there's no good outcome here. but we're going to get one.
Yeah.
We're going to get one.
One way or the other.
And then there'll
something
be
will come.
appeals, I'm
Yeah,
sure, but
of
course.
we're going to get one. Yeah.
It's all one of the, and again, have no idea. She is innocent until proven guilty. I'm not really saying it about that, but we talk about city council. Like you go and they're talking about an issue, vote comes, you move on. And it's always interesting when that verdict comes in, how it's so final when it's guilty. It's like, and you cannot encapsulate that moment well enough because it's so tragic, really, that you have this that happens. You have one side that maybe there's relief, that maybe there's rejoicing sometimes, whatever it might be. And then you have somebody that's literally just taken away. And it's so,
if you're
it's so
guilty, they
catastrophic.
put the cuffs on you and you're done.
You're just,
right at that minute.
You don't get to go home and pack your bags. It's just,
No,
It is time to go.
you don't even get to
just
hug
move on.
mom. Usually,
No.
you're just
You're
done.
up and out.
yeah.
it's
that's
crazy.
the end
It's
of
just, it's catastrophic. It's just one of those sad
it. Yeah,
things.
it's sad.
Yep.
The sad part of the legal system and how it works.
It's got to be heart wrenching.
There are two sides to everything.
Yeah.
And
We'll have to bring an attorney on sometime that's tried some cases like that, and understand it's got to be insanely difficult for them as they go through that. They put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into that case and stuff. So definitely will be interesting. We're bringing you all the feelings today. We'll continue with facts going forward. So definitely looking forward to tracking this, and be sure to join us this Thursday for some updates on some things in the legislature,
8
some
a.m.
updates on things in Dunseith. There's a lawsuit that should be filed. We don't know exactly a date yet.
Sounds like this week.
Yeah,
but we
potentially.
Can't, yeah.
That's just based off of what was made public by them. That following their deadline, there'd be a lawsuit that would be placed soon. So some interesting things coming out.
Yeah, keep an eye out.
Thanks for watching today's episode. Like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.